Hey, okay, this video is just a quick look at and a discussion, I guess, about mixed bus processing. Um, Obviously, there's lots of information on the net about how different people do it, and I just thought I'd show you how I approach it. Um, so I've just picked a track that's from a role that's coming out this summer. So I've been working on in the last couple of weeks. Now here's my mixed bus chain. This isn't typical, but this is what I will always use is a compressor, mixed bus compressor, and I really love the SSL mixed bus compressor, so I use emulations of this when I'm not mixing on an SSL. Let's just play a little bit of the track and hear what it sounds like. Okay, so the vibe of this song is it's not for a dance floor, but it's supposed to be. It's got the groove of the percussion stuff is quite important. So when I put my mix bus on, I really want to feel that it's maintaining or enhancing that movement. So I'll put it on and show you what it's doing. So you can see when this was on, the needle is really dancing in a way that is kind of bringing the backbeat up quite forward. So looking at my settings here, the release is super fast. So my release will be set its release settings tend to be fast with mixed bus processing. So I kind of try and find the sweet spot. I often have it 0.3, but in this instance 0.1 was the go, and the attack is really quite late. So again, the attack for me is kind of set in this range, and in this instance it's 10 milliseconds. The other thing is the ratio. I always have my ratio at 2:1 because other people might argue other reasons to have more compression, but for me it makes sense because I do kinds of stages of dynamics processing. So I might have compression on a kick drum, and then I have a drum group that has compression, and then I have all my drum and percussion stems that will have also compression on it, and then when it gets to my mix bus, it's time to be gentle. So I kind of tend to do gentle stages of compression rather than one kind of intense moment of dynamics processing. So the threshold now, I guess the threshold is directly relating to the gain reduction, and I don't like my mix bus to be reducing more than 4 dB. So you'll see here that it's not going to get past that, kind of sits to 2 to 3 dB generally. Obviously it's getting more intense when the vocals come in. But also, importantly, when the vocals come in, it shouldn't overload this processor so that it loses the movement, because that was something that's really important to set this compressor right, that even when there's lots of sound and lots of energy coming into the compressor, that it still has this there's still working on that rhythm, bringing out that rhythm all the time. The final thing to say really is that I have also used the sidechain filter, so I'm letting through, I think it's up to 50 dB, I think 50, yep. Letting that pass through, so that's not being introduced into the compression circuit. I don't always use this, but sometimes I kind of like it if I want to be able to compress some kind of the mid into a high range a little bit more without the energy of the low end kind of sucking, kind of taking all the energy in the compressor, and thereby I won't be able to compress it as hard. So that's my mix bus. There you go. Now, other mix bus processors which are great are API 2500. I really like VCA compressors on my mix bus, to be honest. Optical is often too slow and can bring in weird transients, particularly in the low frequency area, and FET are too kind of poppy. You kind of want something that gives a nice kind of warmth and groove to it, and FET feel a bit too fast for me. Okay, so moving on, then I have, in this song, I have some EQ going on. So let's play again. I'll show what the EQ is doing. Okay, so what is happening there? Not much. It's pretty gentle actually. So you can see down here, I've got a little bit of gain, 8K and up. Then at around 300, I've taken out a little bit of the low mids. A slight push at 100, and I have rolled off up to 25 hertz because you can't hear that, and it just tightens things up in my mix. So that's, I mean, I don't always do this, but I guess in this instance it felt right for me to do that. I wanted to give a little bit of tone shaping. This is not something that I would mix into. I add this kind of after, at the end, or when I've got the mix sounding really nice, I will put this on rather than mixing into it. Whereas my mix bus I put on directly after I've set up the balances. What else to say? The only other thing to say that I think is relevant is that, so this is a Harrison EQ. I used to work on a beautiful Harrison desk back in the day, and I really love the way that the EQ sound. They're very they're subtle. So at this stage, the kind of EQ that you want to be jumping for is something that gives that you like the tone of the EQ. So it's just gentle tonal shaping at this stage. So that's that. APIs are also nice. The Manley Massive Passive is beautiful. Yeah, just things that are going to give a nice tone and shape. Then I have my VU meter. And then finally I have, I mean here, this is just kind of whatever. I grab for. Now this is a limiter master compressor and limiter. Now why do I have this when I'm in my mix? The only time I ever put this on is when I like to bounce out my mix with this on it. So when I'm sharing it with clients or I want to listen to it myself, it's at the right kind of level. So when I finish my mix, and it also you can sometimes when you limit these things, when you're experimenting, certain details come up that you wouldn't hear otherwise. So now again, I absolutely have this off the whole time, and I only put it up when I'm bouncing the track out when I'm not finished, but I'm wanting to listen to references and get feedback from the client. Obviously I turn this off before I go and get it mastered professionally, or I master it myself. And that is all I have to say. Okay.